Hello and welcome to the newest episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. Today's guest is a talented alternative singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and producer based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You have to go listen to his new album, Symbolica, out right now on all streaming platforms. Before we get the episode started, please make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to follow me at Parker Whirling and at On That Note _podcast. And on that note, please welcome Jonny Darko. I'm sitting here with Jonny Darko, an alternative/dark pop singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and producer based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Before we get this episode started, I gotta give the shout out to our mutual friend and previous On That Note guest, Bobby Rethwish. He's the man. He told me about you, and then when you hit me up, I was like, all right, well, I gotta listen to his new album, Symbolica, and when I did, it was no question. I heard the title track, Symbolica. I was like, all right, this is sick. Let's do it. Let's set it up. So I'm really excited to have you on the show, man.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. I had one question that hit me today that I was like, I have to start off with this because I was like, I'm not going crazy, right? So on the new album, Symbolica, I was wondering why maybe it took 4 years-ish between your debut album and this album to release, because usually people try to, you did have some EPs in between, but 4 years is a good bit of time. And then I went and listened to your first album, Break of Solstice 666 Marijuana. And then I saw on the cover of that, the date was 6/21/17. And I was like, that date sounds familiar. And then I looked back at Symbolica, and it's exactly released 4 years to the day, 6/21/21. So was that destined to be for 4 years?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to keep it in line with that first one. This is kind of like a sequel to that project. The little EPs that I did in between were more fun and not quite as in-depth. Just me kind of growing as an artist and exploring new sounds. But you'll notice like a lot of the lyrics are borrowed from that first album. There's like a part 2, like Table 2 is from the original Table song on that first album. So I really wanted to like connect them as much as I could, so people kind of got the full arc of like both of those projects together.
Interesting. Was it did you know what you wanted to do for this new album when you were releasing that first one, or were you just kind of setting yourself up for this new album?
No, man, that first one I was just like super depressed, and I was like just writing about my state of mind. And when I started writing the material for this second album, I realized I was writing about a lot of the same stuff, and like how I kind of ended up pushing through that period of my life. And I was like, this is about sort of the same topics and everything. This one's a lot more about change. It's not quite as depressing, I guess. Like it's got more of a in the end like a hopeful vibe and stuff like that. The first one was, at least to me, darker, even though this one's got a lot of like spooky stuff on it. So yeah, it was just a matter of like realizing that these two projects were connected and that they didn't really have as much to do with the 3 EPs or the singles or anything. And it was a nice deadline for myself because I've been working on it for so long, and I was like, well, the date's coming up. I should just release it on the same day,
Yeah. That's really cool that you honored that release day, and I feel like, somehow the universe will reward that. It does feel a little bit full circle, like you're bringing things back to like a conclusion, like a more positive conclusion with this new album. Was anything about your writing and recording process different? I know people improve and they change over time. So did you approach this new album differently in a songwriting way or a production style way?
Yeah, that's a good question. My songwriting style is really like stream of consciousness. It's kind of I just sit down, I make a instrumental that kind of matches with what I'm feeling musically, and then I just sort of write lyrics to it, and like I don't really understand it for like a week or something, and I kind of organize it and put it all together. I would say it's probably about the same, but I don't remember recording a lot of the first one because I was just me in my basement, like smoking weed, being really sad, you know. So this one was for sure a lot more uh, of an in-depth process, and obviously doing all the videos for it and everything like that. That was a lot more work, which is also probably why it took 4 years.
Did you learn any lessons from maybe taking a more like, I mean, in-depth or focused approach coming into this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely paid off. Like the final product, I'm really happy with, and I feel like I really found uh, my voice like with this album. Like this is the kind of music that I want to make, sonically and like lyrically. I think it is kind of my best foot forward. So I think the time definitely like that I put into it paid off.
Do you have a song that you feel the most proud of?
Oh, that's a good question. Uh, I think Forest Fire might be my favorite one right now. It's
Mm.
just like something I've never done before. It's like a weird time signature, and I use this crazy like high school drum line sample at the end to get this big like crazy finale for it. That was like really fun to make. Um, yeah, I'm really proud of that one.
It's cool when you write something that feels like something you usually wouldn't do. I kind of know what you mean when you do that. That is one I typically feel more proud of because it's like it doesn't feel like you, but it does because you know that you put so much time and effort into it. But it's almost like if someone else showed it to you, you'd be like, "Yeah, of course, this is sick, like no doubt."
Yeah, yeah, it's a great feeling. I was like, oh, I did
There,
that. Like, I did it. I did it well. Like, I had an idea and I made it happen. That's like always the best feeling.
yeah, especially when I feel like I can get into certain patterns and I like repeat certain ways I'm always going to write a song, like a 4 bar verse and then like a 1 bar pre-chorus, and you just like you start to notice your patterns and you get annoyed with that. And when you can break out of that and make something that feels so different from you, it's such a gratifying feeling.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, going back to the trying to add drums to a track and it's like, oh, I'm doing the same thing I've always done, you know? So breaking out of that is definitely, yeah, it's a really nice feeling.
It certainly is. There's some songs that you have that I just have to say, like I love how you'll have like a pretty solid trap beat going throughout, and then all of a sudden like there's this weird break where it's almost like the song kind of disappears for a moment. Like in the title track Symbolica, you kind of have that moment where it takes this like almost James Blake-y turn, and like all the drums fade out, but then it comes back in such this really gratifying way, I think.
Yeah, that middle section of that song is that was the first song I actually did for this project, and yeah, when I got to that part and I wrote that middle section, I was like, okay, we're going somewhere with this. This is working out. That's one of my favorite parts of the album as well. Still, it's yeah, I'm proud of that one too.
Do you have any artists that you look up to when it comes to the way they either structure their songs or their sound design in particular?
Yeah, I always say like my top three is gonna be Bon Iver, Frank Ocean, and Post Malone, and
Yeah,
that's kind of like what
yeah.
I want my music to sound like, if anything, like a love child of those three. They're my three top guys.
I saw that on your Spotify bio, I think.
Yeah,
And once I listened to Symbolic, I was like, wow, he's not kidding. Like, this really is a perfect blend of the three. And you would never think about Bon Iver and what's his name, Post Malone,
Yeah.
being in the same room, but your songs really hit that vibe. And then when things get more melodic, it does make kind of a Frank Ocean feel to it as well. And like things get so open, like when those open parts really kick in, it does feel like a Frank Ocean moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's kind of pretentious to say that I want my stuff to sound like them because they're so good, but I've had uh, some publications like this one paper that like wrote about me was like, he said it was gonna sound like Post Malone and Bon Iver, and at first I was like, that sounds terrible, like, but then I listened to it and was like, okay, I kind of get it, and I was like,
Yeah,
I did
makes
it.
sense to me.
Yeah, so
And I wouldn't have even really pictured those combinations until it was mapped out. And I was like, oh, yeah, actually, I do see how he did this, and he made it work really well. And your visuals in particular, I think, match the sound a lot. What's your take on like visuals for projects? Do you have a certain way that you go about them? Do you have a philosophy when it comes to that?
yeah, well, thanks. This is the first project I've really done a lot of visuals for. I like abstract stuff, and I like maximalist, like I don't know what the word is, like overstimulating stuff. So especially with like a lot of the lyric videos and things, me and my wife cut out like hundreds of pictures from magazines, and we're just scanning them into our printer and just kind of putting it all in there. So I feel like the more you have like in a video, it can cover a multitude of sins, if you know what I mean. Like, it doesn't all have to be quite perfect when there's like 12 things going on at once. So that makes it easier for sure.
Yeah. It's more of like fitting a vibe of things
Yeah.
instead of like being, because, there's a virtue to both. There's a virtue to being direct, and there's also a virtue to allowing the audience to kind of do a lot of the filler, like I feel like there's a lot of Radiohead songs that strike me as, he's not that direct of what he's talking about, and he's letting the listener kind of fill in the spaces for you. And yeah, some of your visuals and I think your lyrics as well, like, do that kind of thing where you are like, you can pick up pieces of what you're talking about, but there's room for the audience to really make up their own movie in their head.
Yeah, that's a really big deal to me, man. Like, I don't know, this whole project and the last album, it's really like, it's pretty confessional in a sense. It's really about me, like the whole thing, and I really just hope that people are getting something for themselves out of it, and it's not just like, oh, like, look at him, like, like I put on this premiere of the film at a local like theater here, and I've been working on the album for so long, I kind of like forget what it's really about, or like any of the emotional like impact, or what people are going to think of it when they see it. And being at that theater then with all those people, like people that I knew and their friends and stuff watching it, it all kind of like came back and hit me. And there's a funny feeling where it's like, man, I just spent like so long making this whole thing, and it's kind of like all about me, and I'm like inviting people to come watch and hoping that they're gonna be like, oh, you're so great. Like, I don't know, it's not exactly like that, obviously, but I really hope that, yeah, people can have their own narrative or their own things that they relate to, and it's not just like too focused on me, because I feel like when that happens in music, that's just not like what I really want it to be or what I'm trying to do necessarily.
Yeah. Well, it's very vulnerable to put yourself out there, especially when it is about, maybe more sad things in your life. And the thing about that is that it's important to express those things, because it helps other people not feel as alone because they can identify with the imagery they're seeing or the lyrics they're listening to, and they are like, oh, I am not alone. Like, this person feels the same way. And sometimes if you're too specific, maybe on one side it's like, okay, well, the person who's going through that exact specific thing might feel great, but it might leave out a lot of people's experiences. So there's something to be said for leaving room in your songs or your videos, visuals, to allow the audience to kind of fill in with their own imagination what they think it means, and that can be very therapeutic, I think.
Yeah, that's the goal, man. I mean, even the title of this album is Symbolica, and like you were talking about all the visuals, like so much is going on. Yeah, it's like I want people to be able to put their own meaning on all that stuff, and yeah, maybe my story can be a symbol of some kind for someone else, like a representation of like one way of being, but everyone's got to figure out their own thing, and so music that kind of encourages that, I'm really into that. I like that a lot. So that's my hope.
Speaking of visuals, the Aliens music video is so cool.
Yeah.
Love the burning piano in the middle of a forest.
That was fun.
How
man.
did you come up with that idea, and how did you keep the forest from burning down, literally?
We probably did not take enough precautions, honestly, but the idea was pretty random. We just were like, one of my friends was like, hey, on Facebook Marketplace, there's all these like free pianos people are getting rid of because they're hard to move. And so we just found one and picked it up and lit it on fire. We were further away from the forest than it kind of looks in the video too. So we had some water and some hoses at a friend's property. Yeah, it was super fun. It was really hot. Like in that video, I'm just like drenched in sweat, and like there's a few parts where I got like really, really close to the flames.
You were. I was a little nervous for a moment.
Yeah, but I made it out, and it was great, dude.
I bet that was fun. Yeah. Do you have any advice for artists when it comes to working on their own music videos?
Yeah, I mean, definitely like find people who are good with cameras and good with that stuff. Like I have a few guys around me who are really big into that type of stuff. So they help me with the more professional looking videos. But as far as like pretty much all the other ones, like I just got Adobe Premiere and just spent like a really, really long time like trying to figure it out, and importing videos from my iPhone and putting weird effects on them. Like, I think, maybe it's like you don't really need like a crazy high budget or anything. Like most of the videos for that album are like just random found footage from my iPhone that I put some weird filter on or whatever. Like, so just do it. I mean, that's just give it a crack, and maybe it won't be that good, and then do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Just do it, because you're not going to have a product if you just sit around waiting for someone else to come to you with it. I mean, maybe you'll be really lucky and somebody hits you up, but that's pretty rare. And also, I mean, like you're saying, like, be resourceful. You found this piano for free, and you just got some friends who were down to help you out, who are, bring good vibes and you trust, and like you can use all these resources available to you instead of having to like go out of your way to pay for a production company to do something. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if you feel intimidated to do that, it doesn't mean you can't make it happen the same way. Just because you don't want to pay for studio time in a real studio doesn't mean you can't record an album in your basement and make it sound pretty good.
Absolutely. Yeah, dude. I mean, I think people have in their mind, like, if I ever were gonna make a music video or make a song, it needs to be like up to this level, and it needs to be like this, and I want to get I'm waiting for the time to be right for me to have these certain resources or have these connections that I can, make my dream come true. But then in the meantime, it's like they're not doing anything else. Like, just get your phone and do something. That's, I guess that's really my like biggest advice in general to like musicians. It's like, just keep making stuff and don't worry about like it's gonna be as good as where you're at like when you're making it, and what the resources you have at that time. But just do it until it's done and then finish it, and don't wait around forever for something crazy to come out of the clouds and Stanley Kubrick's back from the dead with his camera ready to make your masterpiece. Like, that's just not really how it works.
No, and you got to understand that if you're making your first song or your first music video, your first album, whatever, there's a really, really good chance it's not going to be like incredible. It's going to be cool because you're going to finally have done something, but you have to have room to grow, and you will have room to grow. And eventually, if you keep doing what you want to do and you keep pushing yourself to get better and you keep making smart, good choices, you're going to get to a point where you are realizing real world products and music and videos that are what you've been dreaming of making.
Yeah. I mean, even this, like you were talking about these two albums that I came out with, like I deleted all my like previous work, but this like Break of Solstice was my like 8th album that I made. Like, I came out with my first album when I was 15. Like, you can still find it on Bandcamp.
Wow.
And I just like kept making music, and I think I got really comfortable with like putting it out. And yeah, I was like pretty young, so I ended up deleting it and kind of starting over from scratch. But like, you don't have to put it out. It's just a matter of like, if you love what you're doing, you're gonna want to go out there and shoot something. You're going to want to go record something because you love doing it, and just keep going. And then you can only get better, I guess. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Sometimes it's one of those like stocks. Eventually, it's all going up over time, but there's a lot of times where it goes up and down, up and down.
Yeah, dude, I'm terrified of this idea that like a person's creativity will like run out one day. Like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like, I don't know. Like, you see certain bands or whatever where it's like at a certain point, I feel like they just are making the same thing over and over again. Like, they kind of exhausted, like, almost their, like, creative juices. And that's, like, that's an idea that terrifies me. I hope that's not true. Like, but.
I know, it is a weird thing. Like, you think of, I'm trying to think of some good examples. Like, Paul McCartney, one of the greatest songwriters of all time, but he's got some real duds. He just does. But then sometimes he comes back out of nowhere with like some really great songs.
Yeah.
And then he comes out with a song called "For You," which is awful. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
I don't think so.
You should look it up. FUHU. For You.
Dude, I will look that up.
He put it out in like 2018, 2019. It is rough. But then he put out this new album, McCartney 3, and I thought it was pretty good. I mean, maybe it's not up to the exact caliber as other ones, but it's like sometimes you dip and sometimes you rise.
He's got a great song with Khruangbin on there, right? That's the new album.
Yeah, that's like the Paul McCartney McCartney 3 reimagined.
Oh, okay.
So he has like a song with each artist like of this generation, I guess.
Dude, I think, I mean, this is maybe a little bit of a change of topic, but what I want to do next, I want to like start collaborating with a lot of people and kind of go more that route. Like I was saying, like this last project, it was pretty like internal, and it's me sort of thinking about me and all that stuff. But I would really just love to start like having more features and talking about, I guess, broader issues like that affect society and like bigger things like that moving forward. I don't know, we'll see. It's hard to write about that kind of stuff you know. But
Yeah, it is. I know what you mean, because I also typically try to focus on what I'm going through, and the idea of approaching bigger concepts is kind of intimidating to me.
yeah, we'll see if it works out, but maybe it'll be a nice challenge.
Well, I think it would be great to see you work with Bobby Rethwish, because I think y'all's sounds are very complementary to each other. I'd love to see what y'all come up with.
Yeah, we definitely will. I'm looking forward to that as well. It's nice to be back, like actually making new music now that the last 4 years of this album is like finally done. Like
Yeah,
it took
I'm
me
sure
a long time.
that's a relief. Bobby told me to ask you. He wants to know what you're doing with your samples, because your samples are just so interesting and cool.
uh, I don't know, man. I
You don't have
I've
to give away all your secrets,
well, yeah,
but
I've definitely
just
sampled
curious.
things that are probably not okay to sample. So that's maybe a key to it. I don't know. It's like that's kind of how I get my biggest inspiration is like finding a sound that already exists. And a lot of times that's actually like uh voice memos that I have in my iPhone, like of me playing a piano or something, where I'm just kind of like fiddling around, and I didn't actually really write like a whole part or anything like that. But then like 2 months later, I find that little note, and I just chop the piano up and turn it into something. Like that's easier for me than just sitting down at a guitar, or a keyboard, and just being like, okay, C major, E minor, what next? Like, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I used to be a little more like that, like going to Splice and finding sounds like that and making a song that way. And now it's like I don't feel like I can do that really that much anymore. Like I have to have a guitar, because I have to like start somewhere and write the whole song now, instead of like starting with something, writing the verse, and then having to figure out what the hell I'm gonna do for the chorus, and doing like shit like that. But it's like it changes. Sometimes I go back to that and it helps, but it's not quite the way it used to be for me.
Yeah, I love that feeling of just like starting and being like, where's this gonna go, and like having to figure out the next thing. I think that's kind of where a lot of those moments that you were talking about on the album come from, like that, those breaks, or like, oh, something totally random just happens next. It's like it kind of comes from that, where it's like, okay, I kind of worked myself into a little box here musically, and now I got to figure something else out. So I like that process. I most of my drum sounds are just from Splice. Yeah.
Love Splice, honestly. What a godsend.
Yeah, honestly.
Cool. Well, that's going to take us over to the last five, where I'm just going to ask you five questions and we'll be out of here.
Sweet.
Awesome. Question number one is Logic or Ableton?
Pro Tools, man.
Oh, hit the third party dog. Okay.
Ableton over Logic, though, for sure. I
Yeah.
don't like Logic at all.
Interesting. There's only been one other person who's said Pro Tools on this show.
Really?
Out of like 80 episodes. Yeah.
Pro Tools for me.
So, why do you prefer Pro Tools? Did you start with that, or did you end up there?
Yeah,
somehow?
no, I started with that. I mean, that's really just all it is. It's just what I know.
Mhm.
And Ableton for sure is like, Ableton and Logic are like easier, and they're like designed way smarter. Like there's stuff you can do on Ableton in just like one click that on Pro Tools you
Right.
have to do like a bunch of different steps, but I just know it too well. Like I don't think I'll ever really be able to make the switch, even though I kind of wish that I could.
Yeah.
I would go to Ableton
See,
though.
yeah, if Ableton just gave me like their big package, I would probably do what I could to switch to Ableton, but like I'm just not interested in paying that amount of money.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is. And Logic was only like $200, and I
Yeah.
grew up doing GarageBand, so it was kind of the natural
Oh yeah.
progression.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, whatever works for you though. I mean, I'm not a big like DAW wars guy or like competition guy.
Right.
It's all the same thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, some people are super intense about it, and that's totally fine if you want to be like that, but you're right. The reality is whatever you're comfortable with and whatever makes sense for you.
Yeah.
Cool. Question number 2 is, what do you think is a perfect album front to back?
In Rainbows by Radiohead.
Whoo, there, man, you're speaking my language. That has always been my answer as well.
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, there's
Do you
others,
remember
but
the first time you heard it?
yeah, dude. My uncle bought me the vinyl when I was like pretty young. I don't know, maybe 15 or 16. So I listened to it on vinyl, and I didn't even like know who Radiohead was at that point. And I was like, oh my god.
So that was the first album you heard of theirs?
Yeah.
Whoa,
Which is kind of a
that's
weird
cool.
introduction to them, right?
Yeah, usually it's like OK Computer,
Yeah.
or like the Bends maybe.
Yeah, I got into all that stuff at like way after that one.
Interesting. So why is In Rainbows to you a perfect album, and why do you think it's like better than the rest of the Radiohead albums?
It's just so like it's just them like doing their thing. Like there's not that much unaccounted for sound, but it's like perfect. It's just, I don't know. It's probably also just because it's like it made such a big impact on me when I was like at that age too. So I'm probably biased, but
Right.
but dude, like Weird Fishes, like they just do this crazy like guitar arpeggios, and it just works together so well. It's yeah, I love it, man.
I was talking to previous guests on the show, Sam Eagle and Elliot Moss, and they both said that In Rainbows they thought was a perfect album front to back. And I totally agreed with them when they said the thing about that album is that it's like there's no sound out of place. Like everything in there is supposed to be there, and there's nothing more. There's no like weird sounds that aren't supposed to be there that throw you off. It's like it's just the perfect amount of instrumentation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And it's so like clean sounding. Like it's such high fidelity, almost like audio. It's just everything is so crisp. It's just right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite song or top 3?
Yeah, Weird Fishes is for sure my top song.
Yeah, that's in my top 3 as well. It's switched around a lot over the years, but I think my top 3 at this point would probably be Weird Fishes, because I don't think that'll ever go away for me.
Yeah.
And then maybe All I Need and House of Cards.
House of Cards, man, that's for sure my number 2.
Yeah, House of Cards snuck up on me. That like took a couple years of listening to that album for that one to make its way to the top. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I think I was just so hyped on like Body Snatchers and 15 Step.
Yeah.
And gradually it's kind of switched over to the slower songs.
You know which one did that for me was Jigsaw Falling Into Place.
Yeah.
Like I
yeah,
never really
absolutely.
thought that much of that song. I mean, I loved it, but like yeah, it really became one of my top like later on listening to it. The song is crazy, dude.
It really is. I've tried to like learn it on guitar. It's not as easy. It's really not.
Yeah, none
Like,
of their
I
stuff
thought it
is
would be.
easy.
No,
Yeah,
it really isn't.
done the same thing, and it's like I give up. Like the piano stuff, like you try to play Pyramids or whatever, or something.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like you're just instantly lost. Like I don't know how it's like he's got a metronome in his brain.
Right.
It's just counting to him. I could never.
Yeah,
I
that
could never
song
do
is
that.
such a weird timing.
Yeah, they're crazy, dude.
Just a big shout out to Radiohead. Love those guys. And we could spend hours talking about them if I don't know.
Yeah, I
long.
suppose.
So, question number 3 is, who's your dream artist or producer to work with?
Ooh. Probably Justin Vernon.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
He's the man. People have said him on the show a few times.
Yeah, dude. I mean, and he's close to home. He's like right over in Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, is that just like one state over?
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm in Minneapolis.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what he would be like in person, but whatever he does is just, yeah. He like 22 A Million's my all-time like favorite album, I think. I guess In Rainbows
wow.
is close too, but
Yeah.
yeah,
That I feel like that album in particular, and I've talked about this on the show before, that one struck me more than any other of his albums. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I think the self-titled one is the one with like Holocene, right? Like that one I like, but 22 a Million is just like out there, and it feels so different than anything he had done, and still has yet like he hasn't really gone back to that kind of sound. And I think it was like a moment when he did that, but it wasn't as big as I thought it probably should have been. And I think in like 5 to 10 years, a lot of artists who like get big are going to be referencing that album as like a huge inspiration.
Yeah, I feel like before that, I just never heard anything like that. Like, it's just so creative. I don't know.
Very creative.
And I'm sure
like,
that kind of stuff, maybe it existed before and I just hadn't heard it, because I'm probably very ignorant about a lot of, like, music history and stuff. But that just came out of nowhere for me and was, like, very quickly one of my top albums.
Yeah, now I need to go back and listen to it, because it was pretty rare that I listened to the whole thing. I'd always listen to like the first 5 or 6 tracks and be like, oh, this is sick. And then like I would always listen to it while I drive, so I never really finished it. But I have before, and it's dope. But those first 4 or 5 tracks to me just are like mind blowing.
Dude, the other thing about that album that I love, or that I guess was really almost like encouraging to me, is that like almost the opposite. Sorry, not to go on for too long about this, but it's almost like the opposite of In Rainbows. Like, it's not perfectly clean and like high fidelity. It's like, if you listen to it in like certain speaker systems, it's like sounds kind of weird. And like, yeah, like there's a lot of broken down sounds and like muffled sounding stuff that, like, you know, if you were just only like technical producer, I feel like you would be kind of like that kind of stuff would bother you. But for me, like, that was almost freeing to just be like, my mixes don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be able to hear everything. Like, if the idea is good, people are gonna like it. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the sounds are so crazy that it doesn't really have to be like so pleasing to the ear, because I mean the whole album to me doesn't really, like, nothing really sounds clean. I wouldn't say it sounds bad, it just sounds like grimy. Someone I talked to said it sounded like they made the cassette of it and then he ran it over with his car and like just jumbled up everything. It sounds so gnarly, but in a great way.
I know a lot of people like don't like it because of that. Like Anthony Fantano gave it like a 4.
Oh,
and
man.
I was like,
see, some of his opinions are whack. I really love the guy. Some people hate him. I really do enjoy him.
I do too.
I got no problem with if he gives an album like a low bar. I'm more confused when he gives like albums that I don't think are that great a higher standard, you know.
It's interesting though, just to see somebody who's like so opinionated about music, and then it's like different from mine.
Right. And then like when he does give a review of an album that I liked and he like shits on parts of it, I almost always find myself being like, I agree now. Like, when you put it that way, I'm like, oh fuck, he is right. Like, those sounds are kind of weird, and I just couldn't articulate why it bothered me.
Yeah.
But now it makes sense.
He doesn't like Post Malone either.
No, but I think he said one of his albums he loves, Beer Bongs and Bentleys.
Yeah, he gave that one a better review than
but the other
first,
two, he was like, not good at all.
I get that.
I actually have not really listened to that much Post Malone other than like the hits.
You got it, dude.
I guess so. Like, I always just thought maybe he was, I don't know, just like the next rapper or whatever. But then he's stayed on top for so long. I'm like, all right, there's something to him for sure.
Yeah, it's pop music, like, for sure, and that's not for everybody. But yeah, it's like when I want to listen to some pop music, he's my guy.
Got you. Okay, cool. Well, I'll check out that Beer Bongs and Bentleys.
Yeah, that's my favorite album by him. So
okay, cool. I'll check it out. And when I asked the dream artist producer to work with question, I always try to think of a couple. I did put in Bobby Rethwish just to put it out there because I want to see that happen.
Yeah.
but I also put in James Blake and FKA Twigs.
Oh, yeah, that would be sick.
That would be really sick.
I just got to get in touch with them. Still working on it.
I'll give them a call. Don't worry.
Thanks, dude.
We'll make it happen.
Sick.
Get in touch. But yeah, question number 4 is going to be, what's on your musical rotation right now?
Ooh. I'm trying like desperately to get through the new Tyler album, and I keep getting interrupted because I'm like driving somewhere, or, you know, something happens. So I've listened to the first half of it like 5 times or something.
Yeah. It is longer than I would like for it to be, but I think it's pretty awesome.
I love Tyler. So I'm looking forward to finishing that.
Yeah, the new album, I've got to say, is really good. It's hard for me to decide if I like it more than Igor or not, but I really like it. And I'm like, I don't know if it's because it's new that I like it more than Igor, and because I really listened to Igor a lot when it came out. So maybe it's just that I prefer something new, but it's one of those things. I think only over time people will decide which one is better.
There's a lot of rapping on it too, and I feel like Igor was almost no rapping.
Yeah,
it was like a lot more melodic. So I think fans will be divided along those lines. That's my prediction.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right. It's going to be one of those long-term debates that never really gets settled.
But I guess I haven't finished it yet either, so I don't really know.
Yeah, now you got to finish it and come back to me and let me know what you think. Maybe the second half you're like, dude, this sucks. I take it back.
I take it back.
Like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, the last question here, I'm really curious what your opinion is. I only ask some people this because I don't know if they listen to it or not, but I know you do. So, Channel Orange or Blonde?
Blonde.
Woo, that's right. Like, I agree, and you had no hesitation at all.
And dude, actually, it's Blonde, Endless, and then Channel Orange for me.
Okay, yeah. The last guy I asked that, Pedazo de Carne con Ojo, he said Endless when I asked that.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Okay.
Dude,
okay.
it's a sleeper. But
it
slaps.
I have that CD in my car. It's like a bootleg CD that I found at a record store. And I was like, is this that album? I never even really listened to the whole thing. I heard like some songs when he put it out 2 days before Blonde.
Yeah.
So then when I found the CD, I was like, I should probably get this. And it's been in my car ever since.
Yeah, that's a great album to have in your car, I feel like.
Yeah, especially for like nighttime drives.
Yeah, dude. My brother-in-law has a bootlegged vinyl of it.
Of Endless?
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah, it's cool, but have you seen the like actual one? The packaging is like I don't know how many he sold, probably like 10 or something. Like knowing Frank, but the packaging for it is like crazy. It's like, yeah, you should look it up.
Okay, yeah, I will. I haven't seen it.
Anthony Fantano did like a unboxing of it, and he like shows you all this. Yeah, he shows you all this stuff, man. And it's crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out. But why would you say Blonde over Channel Orange? I want to see if we have similar feelings.
I don't know. I feel like Blonde was a bit more like my style, my taste. Like Channel Orange has a lot more, I don't know what the word is, like almost like R&B type like stuff, which is cool. Like, but it just sounds like older. Like Blonde when it came out was like crazy, like futuristic, I guess. Like it felt more innovative. I also didn't listen to Channel Orange when it like first came out, so I was late to the game on it. I don't know. I like the drums better. I like the guitar better. I like the vocals better. I like the lyrics better. There's like such a nice arc to that album. Like it starts out and like the order of it is perfect. And once you get to like Nights, if you're listening to the whole album, once you get like to that song, you're just in pure bliss.
Yeah. I never want to listen to that album not in order.
Yeah. Well, it's
like,
crazy
I don't
too.
want to shuffle.
I feel like if I listen to a song like Nights is my favorite song from that album, and if I listen to that song like out of context, it's totally not the same. Like it does not slap as hard. But then for some
Yeah.
reason, the other songs around it, it's perfect.
Totally agree. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that being like such a futuristic thing. Like, I feel like Channel Orange is an album that it didn't sound mind blowing. It sounded really good and awesome, but it didn't sound like something that had come from the stratosphere the way that Blonde feels like. It doesn't feel like anybody could ever make an album like that again, you know? It's like a zeitgeist of that moment.
Yeah. The other thing about Blonde is like there are parts on that album that are just like so cool, like so smooth, like so chill. I don't know. He's got like a certain like way of just like talking on that album or whatever, where he just sounds so cool. and Channel Orange is like not quite as much of that.
Yeah, he seems so just comfortable doing so little
Yeah,
on Blonde.
which is crazy. I've heard that he's actually like very difficult to work with.
I'm sure he's very particular,
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
that's why he's the GOAT.
I guess so. Yeah.
Well, Jonny Darko, thank you for joining me for an episode of On That Note. It was a pleasure getting to talk with you about your new album, Symbolica. Big shout out to Bobby Rethwish one more time for getting us in touch with each other. And yeah, everybody needs to go check out your new album. It's on all streaming platforms. It's such a cool, like, alternative, dark pop, almost gothic vibe to it. And yeah, thank you again for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Of course. I'll talk to you later, dude. See ya.
People don't change until they have to. Look each other in the
Thank you again for joining me for another episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. If you haven't yet, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and you can even leave a comment down below to let me know who you're listening to. On that note, I'll see you guys next time.